The royal world has been rocked like never before. King Charles just dropped his latest, most emotional announcement, one that reveals the heartbreaking truth about Queen Camilla's future. Even the closest palace insiders were stunned, and reports say the Queen herself was driven into a frenzy behind the polished walls of the palace. Tension, sorrow, and shocking revelations are boiling over. So what exactly did the King reveal about Camilla's fate today? We expose the tragic announcement shaking the monarchy to its very core. A kingdom held in stunned silence moments ago. History seemed to pause as the velvet curtains of Clarence House fluttered faintly, catching the soft London breeze as King Charles stepped into the blinding glare of camera flashes. His face was heavy with the weight of what he was about to say, his voice quivered as he faced the nation and then the world. And then came the words nobody expected, words that freeze time and ripple through generations. Her Majesty the Queen Consort Camilla is to forfeit her royal title effective immediately, pending a full investigation. A collective gasp spread through the gathered press like wildfire racing through dry leaves. The room seems to tremble under the weight of those words. Never in modern history had a reigning monarch publicly severed such a bond, not with such finality, not with such pain. Beside him, Queen Mary's crown rested on its pedestal, an ornate relic sparkling with Colin diamonds and rare gems. Once a proud sign of unity, it now stood as a silent witness to division. Its brilliance contrasted painfully with the tension filled the whole. An aide muttered, "Made breath, it's done." Outside, reporters shouted questions, jostling and pushing, but their voices were lost in the echo of London's grey skies and solemn church bell. As inside a royal household was unraveling, the question burning through the air was simple yet searing. What could drive a king to such a decision? Whispers from Buckingham Palace suggest the trigger wasn't gossip or hearsay, but something tangible, undeniable. A sapphire brooch, not just any brooch, but one that once belonged to the late Princess Diana, suddenly appearing to Geneva auction and sending shockwaves through royal circles. Its journey led investigators straight to House Camilla, his private Wiltshire residence. Within hours, a secret intermediary was identified, now reportedly under intense scrutiny by police investigators. Princess Anne was the first to raise the alarm, her instincts razor sharp as ever. Prince William's fury and fierce loyalty to his mother's memory demanded answers, and Catherine, calm, poised yet unshakable, resolute, urged her father-in-law to act fast, protect the crown. She reportedly whispered, "No matter the cost." Last, when the moment came, King Charles's hands shook as he picked up the pen. The pen felt impulsively heavy, its ink carrying centuries of tradition, duty, and heartbreak. His voice, there restrained, echoed with ancient resolve. The crown must remain untarnished, and with that single stroke the unthinkable became reality. The British monarchy now stands at a fragile, glittering crossroads, dazzling yet fractured, venerable yet shadowed by scandal. What had once been an institution built on loyalty and legacy now wrestles with questions of morality, law, and betrayal from within. Outside the palace gates, the world watches, stunned, fascinated, perhaps even sympathetic. Inside, corridors that once echoed with measured footsteps now hum with uneasy silence. Staff whisper, advisors confer behind closed doors, and the air itself feels thick with secrets yet to surface. Could a single lost, stolen, or sold jewel unravel the delicate thread of royal continuity? Or is this merely the tip of something far deeper? This is a story of trust broken, of love tested, of history repeating itself in haunting symmetry. To understand this fracture in the crown, one must look back behind the headlines. Lies more than scandal. It is a tale of inheritance, rivalry, grief, and guilt buried beneath the grandeur of monarchy. It all began with a sapphire brooch, once a token of affection, now the spark igniting the most shocking royal reckoning in recent memory. As church bells toll and palace gates remain shut, one truth is undeniable: this is not just royal scandal, it is the start of a new chapter in a centuries-old saga where loyalty, love, and legacy collide. Beneath the shadow of the crown was Camilla, challenged over the discovery. Before the king's announcement, how did she respond? Denial, defiance. On the cold evening of October 11th, the palace released a measured, Statement: Her Majesty the Queen Consort will assist with an internal inquiry regarding the provenance of certain royal heirlooms. Polite calm. But beneath those words a storm brewed within Clarence House. The Maple Room, with its polished mahogany table and gilded portraits, had once hosted rehearsals for the King's call. We're a nation's speech, and now it was the stage for confrontation and collapse. But that night there was no stage for celebration. It was a courtroom. King Charles sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, his face etched with weary resolve. To his right, Princess and expression sharp as glass. To his left, Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, both solemn and tense. And at the far end sat Camilla, pale, her trademark pearls replaced by a simple gold chain, the kind of subtle change that spoke louder than words. The silence was suffocating until Camilla finally broke it. Her voice trembled yet remained steady. "You all think I stole something," she said, eyes darting toward Charles. "Do you think I stole her?" The meaning was unmistakable. She was referring to Diana, the ghost lingering in every royal corridor. Charles, his reply came slowly, his voice cracking under strain. "It's not about her," he said. "It's about the crown and what people believe so." Sliding a thick folder across the table, stamped on the front "Confidential." Inside were papers, photographs, signatures, evidence too heavy to ignore, and said flatly, "They speak for themselves." Camilla, his lips trembled. "These were not my orders," she whispered, voice catching. William leaned forward, calm but steel-edged. "Then say whose they were," he demanded. Silence, he knew, would damage more than any scandal ever could. For a moment, only the slow ticking of the wall clock filled the room. Charles leaned back, eyes heavy. "Whoever signed it," he said finally, "no longer matters. Ambiguity poisons the crown." His words landed like a verdict high and him. Through the glass case the imperial state crown shimmered under the chandelier, half in light, half in shadow, as if judging them all. Camilla Mosk began to crack. Her voice rose, shattering the formality that had longed to find her life. "Do you think I wanted this life, this burden? I rebuilt it for this family, early for this crown, and now I am being destroyed for something I may never have even ordered." And met her gaze coldly. "No one's destroying you," she said, "but trust once lost rarely returns." Catherine spoke softly but sharply. "These jewels are not just ornaments. They carry stories, memories. When one disappears, a story is erased, and once a story is lost, the crown itself grows dimmer." The clock struck midnight. A decision was made. The Privy Council would convene at dawn. Camilla would be asked firmly to relinquish or title. Her reign as Queen Consort would end before the morning sun. Charles remained in the Maple Room long after the others left. He stared at the crown and its glass case, centuries of power, pain, and history sealed within. His whisper cut through the silence. "The crown and Jews." Hours later, Camilla carriage rolled through the dark countryside toward Ray Mill House, the night swallowing her in shadow. The night outside was quiet, save for the rhythmic creak of carriage wheels on gravel. When Camilla arrived at Ray Mill House, she entered her still dimly lit room and noticed a photograph from her coronation. She and Charles smiling, her crown tilted just slightly. She stared at it for a long, heavy moment, then gently turned it face down, letting it rest in another part of the city far from her. Eyes and voice crackled through the phone. "You did the right thing," she said, from but soft. Charles paused before answering, his tone low and exhausted. "It won't heal," he admitted, and reply came gentle, carrying the weight of timeless truth. "It wasn't meant to heal," she said. The crisp golden days of early autumn 2025. The royal household paused like a hive preparing for war. The long-awaited Heritage Gala was just weeks away, a glittering night meant to honor Britain's past and celebrate the monarchy. Seamstresses worked late into the night, jewelers polished heirloom steeped in history, and palace halls buzzed with whispers of gowns, guest lists, and royal appearances. At the center stood Queen Camilla, chosen to wear Queen Mary's crown along with a dazzling collection of jewels once belonging to Queen Elizabeth II and the late Princess Diana. Newspapers praised the symbolism, a union of legacies, elegance, and heritage woven into a single royal night. But beneath the shimmer of diamonds and strict decorum, something darker stirred. The celebration would soon ignite a scandal. No one could contain it. began quietly as storms do. A whisper, a rare sapphire brooch strikingly similar to one Diana had worn, appeared at a discreet auction house in Geneva. At first it seemed a coincidence, but collectors, always sharp-eyed, noticed a tiny engraving on the clasp. D 1981 Diana's personal mark. Experts confirmed it authentic, a piece thought untouchable, safely stored in the Royal Collection Trust. How had it ended up across the channel in a private auction room? The palace felt tremors of quiet chaos, the trail of ownership traced through confidential shipping papers, and a coded invoice led back to Millhouse Camilla Private S. The palace press office scrambled, insisting it was a misattribution, but Princess and shocked and uncompromising refused to be deceived by polite lies. She demanded an official audit of the royal jewelry registry, the meticulous ledger that tracked every gem, crown and heirloom ever held by the family. When the audit arrived, the findings were more than alarming. They were devastating. Several documents had vanished, some transfer forms altered, a few Asian notes for initials unmistakably resembling CP. Camilla. Steps echoed through the palace corridors, once alive with rehearsals for the gunner. Now the halls hummed with whispers of betrayal for Prince William and Catherine. It became a battlefield of conscience, torn between loyalty to the monarchy and loyalty to memory. 3. To Diana's enduring legacy. One evening, under the polite pretense of a family dinner, they visited Clarence House. But the warmth of kinship never came. The room felt heavy, thick with unspoken truths. William finally broke the silence. Mother's memory is not a commodity, he said, voice steady but strained. Camilla, expression barely moved. Catherine, ever calm, added softly, a crown gleams brightest when it's honest. The words lingered, slicing deeper than confrontation ever could. In the days that followed, the jewels, once symbols of pride and continuity, became evidence. They were no longer mere ornaments, they were testimonies of greed, secrecy and wounds never fully healed behind closed doors. Charles seethed, restrained only by his royal reserve. He drafted a letter to the Geneva auction house, brief, cold, and confirming the truth without a hint of hesitation. The reply shattered the facade of unity. The sapphire brooch was real. Its paperwork traced back not to clerical error, but to a deliberate private sale within the palace itself. Trust fractured, long-held resentments resurfaced. The heritage gunner meant to celebrate the monarchy's legacy now threatened to expose its hidden fractures and fragile loyalties. The night that should have dazzled the world with royal grandeur was now cast in shadow beneath polished crowns and rehearsed smiles. The royal family faced an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the brightest jewels conceal the darkest betrayals. But how did King Charles uncover the foul play? How did the staff react to signs quietly mounted as October approached us? Strange unease settled over the palace, creeping quietly, but leaving a heavy weight in the air. Even the staff felt it, though no one dared speak openly. The first sign came when the Royal Jewel Registry, a sacred record of the monarchy's treasures long kept safe in the tower, was suddenly transferred to Clarence House for a private audit. There was no statement, no explanation, just silence. But those who knew royal tradition understood immediately what it meant. When the jewels moved, something far deeper shifts within the family itself. In the Lancaster room, advisors huddled in quiet clusters, voices barely above whispers. A document from Geneva confirmed what many had long feared. The brooch question was authentic. Its buyer's trail led straight to Millhouse Camilla private residence. When the king received the dossier, he sat motionless for a long time, reading it once, twice, a third time, as if willing the words to change. Finally he murmured just 2 words, not again. They carry the weight of old wounds, memories of last betrayal, and shadows of the past that refused to fade. For years, room as had swelled around Camilla. Jewelry, whispers of pearl chokers worn too soon after Diana's death, stories of missing heirlooms that quietly reappeared without explanation. Most dismissed them as gossip, the kind of tales tabloids feasted on. But this time it wasn't a rumor. It was fact, precise, cold, undeniable. Princess Anne was the first to confront her brother. She stormed into Clarence House, voice shock steady. "You cannot hide this." Charles said nothing. His silence spoke louder than any defense. It's meanwhile William and Catherine were already preparing for what might come together. They drafted a confidential document called the Integrity Paper, a detailed plan for how the royal family would respond if the story went public. Catherine's neat notes in the margins softened the tone, one aide later describing her as the calm in the storm. Late that night, a palace staffer found Queen Camilla alone in a gallery room standing before Queen Mary's crown. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass for a long while. She didn't speak. Then, almost in a whisper, she asked, "Will they take it from me?" The staffer remained silent, quietly stepping away. By dawn, the final report from Geneva arrived. The findings were clear. The brooch had been sold with Camilla his personal authorization. Doubt was no longer an option. Whether it was oversight or deliberate, it no longer mattered. Perception had become reality. At breakfast, William broke the family's heavy silence. "You always said the crown is for the people," he said to his father. "Show them now." The king lifted his eyes slowly. "The crown also belongs to history," he replied. Later that day on, and William met with Charles again, formally presenting the evidence. Catherine was there to calm, composed, dressed in soft cream. The anchor in the stormy palace. See, the sapphire ring that once belonged to Diana glinted faintly on her finger. The air was thick with tension, an unspoken emotion heavy enough to choke. The meeting ended with no resolution. But one truth was crystal clear: Camilla must appear before the Privy Council. Outside the palace gates, rumors race through the press like wildfire, tongues wagging, headlines blaring. Inside, silence waged even heavier. Every corridor seemed to hum within the ease. Every glance carried hidden meaning. The monarchy, so careful to preserve dignity, now teetered on the edge of a quiet but dangerous reckoning, one that could reshape not just its image, but its very legacy. Though the palace appeared still from the outside, inside nothing was still at all. Had there been similar, more complex cases of royal theft before? Could King Charles? His discovery suggests that insider knowledge often fuels such crimes. Let's explore one of the most shocking recent royal robberies in broad daylight in Paris. When people hear royal robbery, they imagine cinematic masked men sneaking through moonlit corridors. Gods love to sleep, alarms quietly disabled. But what unfolded in Paris shattered that fantasy. This wasn't a stealthy after-midnight job. It was bold, theatrical daylight thievery that stuck on onlookers and sent tremors through the global art and heritage community. On a crisp November morning, visitors to the elegant Musée Cognac, tucked in the heart of Paris's historic Murray district, expected a quiet day among delicate porcelain, oil paintings, and relics of bygone aristocracy. Instead, they witnessed an audacious heist straight out of a blockbuster. At midday on Nov 20th, 4 masked men stormed the museum, not with finesse, but brute force. Armed with axes and bats, they shattered glass cases as horrified visitors froze. Swift, deliberate, unstoppable. Within minutes, the thieves vanished into Paris's twisting streets on scooters, leaving chaos and disbelief behind their prize. 7 priceless artworks, including two royal snuff boxes once owned by King George V and Queen Mary, relics steeped in British history loaned by the Royal Collection Trust. Their last cut deeper than money. It was a wound to culture, to heritage itself. News outlets described the heist in chilling detail. The robbers' intimate knowledge of the museum's layout and security baffled investigators. This was no random theft. It was a meticulously choreographed strike, a modern echo of old-world plunder where audacity and elegance collided beneath Parisian skies. As the news spread, shock turned into outrage and a strange, morbid fascination. Social media exploded with disbelief. How could something like this happen in broad daylight in one of Europe's most protected cities? Heritage lovers and museum officials lamented the last cooling it not just a crime against property, but a crime against history itself. The Musée Cognac, known for its exceptional 18th-century collection, suddenly became the epicenter of an international manhunt. French authorities, joined by global art crime investigators, combed through security footage, tracing every lead scooter's dark Seeing through the afternoon street sunlight reflecting off shattered glass became the last visible clues in what would soon join the ranks of Europe's most daring cultural thefts. The audacity stunned everyone. Unlike thieves who melt into shadows, these men chose the spotlight. They thrived on the brazenness of their approach. A day right raid on royal artifacts in a public space surrounded by witnesses. It was more than a crime, it was a statement, a challenge that questioned how secure even the most prestigious museums truly are. Yet beneath the shock and spectacle lingered a deeper sadness. Art, no matter how revered, is vulnerable. The snuff boxes of kings George V and Queen Mary, once symbols of refined taste and royal intimacy, now exist in uncertainty. The delicate craftsmanship, historical weight and stories have been reduced to commodities, stripped from the narratives they once carried. As investigators continue their hunt, the world waited not just for justice but for a restoration. What was stolen that day wasn't merely gold enamel or antique beauty. It was a piece of shared human memory, a fragile link between past and present, now lost to the shadows of greed and daring. In the end, this wasn't merely a robbery, it was a story of audacity, loss, and the haunting realization that even in a world that reveres its treasures, not even royal relics of beyond